Here we've had 16 of the 30 trucks have made it onto the speedway already this morning, and I think listening to Jeff Hensley, the crew chief from over at ThorSport, just trying to establish a balance. We look at the number of laps. Matt Crafton 4 laps, Grant Enfinger 3 laps, Austin Hill 4, Todd Gilliland 4, Sheldon Creek 3 laps. The most laps right now is Harrison Burton at 6. He's a youngster. He might need a few more laps to get acclimated to the 1.5 mile speedway here in Kansas as we are set to go. This is the beginning of a very busy day here on Motor Racing Network. We appreciate you joining us on MRN.com or where you find us here, and also joining us on NASCAR.com with the stream here from NASCAR.com. We're on the air for, this is a 50-minute practice session, so we'll carry you through this practice session. All of these times are Eastern, but this is a very, very busy day here on Motor Racing Network. We'll be back at 11:30 Eastern time. NASCAR Gander Outdoors Series Truck Series practice. We'll roll right into the first Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series practice session. That's slated to start at 12:30 Eastern time. Take a little bit of a breather. 2:30 Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series Happy Hour practice session. Then at 7 o'clock tonight, we'll be back here on the Motor Racing Network with qualifying for the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series. They'll race tomorrow night in the Digital Ally 400. And then at 8 o'clock tonight Eastern time, it is the Digital Ally 250 NASCAR Gander Outdoors Truck Series race. So a big, big day here at the Kansas Speedway. Jason, just watching some trucks roll around the track, watching Stewart Friesen right now work his way down the back stretch. And just everyone kind of seems like they're getting up to speed. And as we say that, Stewart gets off the hammer down into turn number 3.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of the trucks, and they're just getting the initial rollout right now, trying to get the motor shook down a little bit, get things warmed up to get ready to roll here, and really limited in practice. You know, you talked about the 50-plus minute practice here. We got them one a little bit later on as well, so not a lot of time to get things set up. And we talk about, and we'll hear from Jeff and Alex about this a little bit later on as well. You know, we're practicing daytime, sunlight, and everything else. We know how much this track will change, but the upside, cool temperatures may not swing that much a little bit later on tonight.
May be close right now. It's close right now temperature-wise to what we're going to have. Now, we do have bright sunshine, so that temperature, that track temperature is going to change. So that's what the situation is here today. Here's what we would like to do also. We have heard from Jeff. We've heard from Alex. Jason and I have certainly chimed in. And one of the stories that we're going to follow along here today and along the way with the Truck Series is last week Johnny Sauter, he kind of established himself as the champion, the guy right now, and I don't think that's breaking news. Okay, our question, and you can follow along with us at MRN Radio on Twitter. Use the hashtag AskMRN. Follow along with the question. Johnny Sauter, with that win at Dover, established himself in the championship battle and as a contender. Who do you think is going to be his contenders? So, Jason, when we look at this, a lot of great racers in this series, but right now, who's going to tug on Superman's cape? Johnny being Superman as we roll through this season.
Yeah, Johnny is looking great. He went from the back to the front a couple of times last week at Dover to come out with the win. But you got to look at his teammate. Matt Crafton is running pretty solid. Grant Enfinger, I mean, he is consistent week in and week out, knocking back on the door for victory lane again as well. And, of course, you got to look at Brett Moffitt, defending champion with a different team with GMS now. They've been running pretty solid as well.
They really have. A lot of shuffling there. Johnny going back to ThorSport, so a lot of shuffling amongst the drivers. And so we have the different drivers there. Actually, you mentioned Grant Enfinger. He has scored more points this year than anybody else. So that's what we want to know. We're on Twitter at MRN Radio. Use the hashtag AskMRN. Our question is, who will Johnny Sauter battle with for the championship run here? So we will see. We'll love to have your participation. We'll talk about that a little bit as we roll on as well. And we'll certainly go down and get Alex Hayden and Jeff Striegel's thoughts on that as well as we continue on with practice here. Trucks rolling in and out of the garage area. Trucks going in and out of the garage area, getting some valuable time here this morning at Kansas.
Quick rundown. Stewart Friesen is your leader right now. Fast speed of 177. Matt Crafton and Grant Enfinger, Austin Hill, Brett Moffitt, Todd Gilliland, Sheldon Creek, Harrison Burton, Johnny Sauter, and Riley Hurst rounding out your top 10. From Kansas Speedway, this is the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR.
Check out MRN.com for a new podcast series called The Tough Trucks of NASCAR. 25 years and still trucking. We'll take you back to some great races.
Benson to the bottom of the racetrack. This is the race for the lead and the win at Michigan.
And some wild moments.
One truck is in the air. Matt Crafton upside down.
And we'll let you hear the stories behind them.
He was too bullheaded to let me pass him, and I was too bullheaded to let him have it.
Download the show for free on iTunes and at MRN.com.
MRN's Classic Races.
Labonte gets crossed up. Labonte goes around. Dale Earnhardt now watches Labonte spun across the line and got the win.
Spanning 50 years of NASCAR racing.
Barney Hall. There's a beautiful afternoon here in Daytona Beach, and the action will be fast and furious.
Legendary voices, legendary races.
Darryl, simply, what happened? I just hope he chokes on that 200,000. That's all I can tell him.
MRN's Classic Races, available on MRN.com, iTunes, and your favorite podcast providers.
He did touch. No, he knocked the hell out of me.
NASCAR is in Kansas City for Mother's Day weekend. I'm Steve Post. The story next on NASCAR Today, midday.
Getting geared up to do that next job? At AutoZone, we have the free services you need to do it right. Like our free AutoZone Fix Finder service. If your check engine light is on, our Fix Finder service will help you troubleshoot the likely issue. And if you need help from a repair shop, we know some of the best. And is it time for a tune-up? Start with your spark plugs. New spark plugs can help you restore lost engine performance and reduce emissions. Let us help you at more than 5,600 locations nationwide. Restrictions and details in store.
Get in the zone, AutoZone. It's going to be a great afternoon for racing.
It's a 400-mile thrill ride. It's going to be a night of beating and banging and roughing them up.
It's hot. With this heat, we could have a really, really wild race.
What will they find when the green flag waves?
I don't think anybody knows what to expect and what's going to happen here.
It's hot, it's windy, it's dusty. It's a perfect day to go racing.
It will be a day of action.
The Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series on Fox and FS1.
The NASCAR Gander Outdoors Truck Series and Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series are at Kansas Speedway this Mother's Day weekend. Kevin Harvick won here a year ago and is still looking for his first win of this season. Chase Elliott won the Cup Series playoff race here last fall and says it may take a while for the best cars to show up at the front of the field here on Saturday night.
I think it's going to be a top lane dominant racetrack as it continues to wear and age and as time goes on even more. So that makes it difficult. It's hard to make a lot happen in a hurry when everybody's riding, the wall and up in those top grooves. So that's the challenge of it is trying to pass and move forward.
Join MRN tomorrow at 6:30 Eastern Time for the Digital Ally 400 Cup Series race. Truck Series race tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. For more, visit MRN.com. I'm Steve Post on the Motor Racing Network.
We're back at the Kansas Speedway getting ready for the running later on this evening of the Digital Ally 250 for the Gander Outdoors Truck Series, along with Steve Post. Jason Toy here with you. Thanks for joining us on this beautiful Friday morning out here in the Midwest. Lots of sunshine, temperatures right around 50 degrees. We see a lot of blue skies, a few high-hanging clouds, but other than that, it's a great day for racing here, and we got a lot of it headed your way with practices for the Gander Outdoors Truck Series and the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series coming up a little bit later on. Trucks are on track right now. Stewart Friesen continues to be the top man on the scoring pylon with 177.585 miles per hour. That's just about 30.4 seconds here around the mile-and-a-half speedway. Jeff Striegel and Alex Hayden are down in the garage area, and Jeff, I tell you what, beautiful morning out here. We got drivers that have already seen some track time, and one driver that continuing to build his program hasn't yet made it in the truck yet.
Yeah, exactly, Jason. And you were just mentioning the trucks on the racetrack. Well, yes, exception one, and that is Jordan Anderson. That truck right now sits still in garage stall number 21. And I don't know, Jordan, what do we have? 4, 5, 6 people that appear to be inside the cab. Not you. What's going on?
Yeah, we've got some guys from Illmore over there and a few of my guys from our team. We went to fire this morning and just didn't like a couple things that we saw in the wiring harness. And the guys from Illmore, they have ad-track service. So rather than fight an issue in the race tomorrow, we said, hey, let's sacrifice a little bit of practice and double-check, make sure everything is good on that side so there's no shorts or issues in the race tomorrow.
All right, how important is this that, you sit here? I mean, I know that you want to be out there like everybody else. One, get the balance. 2, try to find the speed, and instead of that, you're just sitting here watching everybody come and go. How big is track time that you're missing right now?
It's big for us. This is a new truck that we built over the winter. We raced it last year, and we had it blasted and stripped down, rebuilt it over the winter. So this is its first race for us this season. But, we're going through growing pains this season. as anytime you grow, and this is kind of like any business for people that are small business owners out there, you see the hauler bias. We added a hauler this year. We added a few new guys on the team, added some new trucks to the team. So as we're going through this year, we're going from pretty much last year having 1 or 2 trucks. So we're trying to build. GMS is helping us some with our setup. So we've had some really good runs. We just got to really put the whole package together and execute. So for all of us, I mean, we're kind of on the same budget pretty much that we were last year when everybody saw us driving all over the country. We drove out here to Kansas this week. So we're still a small team, but we're in the growing phases and excited to see how things are coming. But hopefully this setback won't be too big for us. We'll get out there before practice ends and get it dialed in and hopefully get us a good qualifying effort and race later tonight.
And Bommarito.com is on the truck. It's also on his uniform. And when you talk about growing, Jason and Steve, this is a team that has now moved to a brand new shop, went from 1 truck a year ago to 6, and they went from, well, that little tag trailer that you might see at your local short track to one of the great big haulers. In other words, this is a team on the grow, a team on the move. Jordan Anderson very proud of what's going on, but unfortunately, at least for now, he's going to have to sit and watch.
You talk about that team and what they're growing with Jordan, and he documents it. He's great on social media to be able to show everybody in the growth and the progress of his program. That trailer, he laid the floor in the trailer. Yeah. He laid all the wood floor in it and everything else. He's very hands-on and being a part of this and building the program and even riding in the truck to come out the track again. We know we talked about it over the last couple of years with Jordan driving his own truck. Now he's got somebody to drive. He can actually sleep a little bit and rest.
29-year-old racer from Forest Acres, South Carolina. I've talked about this before on some of our practice shows. I've been for 22 years the announcer at the summer shootout, and I remember little Jordan Anderson, the kid, came up and said, "Mr. Post, I have a press kit for you." And so he is such a hard-working young man, and when you hear him talk about the different challenges and the struggles in growing, I think, as he mentioned, it's a small business in a big business world that he is working in. He mentioned Ilmor, and Ilmor is the engine provider for the bulk of these teams. So when he talked about some folks from Ilmor inside the truck, those are engine tuners and people working on the electricity or the electrical system, it sounded like, in the truck with some of the wiring. All right, so we're rolling along here in practice session number 1 here as we continue on. We're about 15 minutes into this 50-minute practice session, and we have a question for you, and you can follow along if you're following along on our Twitter account. It's at Motor Race or at MRN Radio. With the Dover win, Johnny Sauter has locked himself into the playoffs and established himself as a title contender. The question we have, and it's an open-ended question, we'd love to get your answer: who will join Sauter in the championship battle? And you can send your answers. Reply to MRN Radio on Twitter. Use the hashtag AskMRN. We'll talk a little bit about some of your suggestions. We'll get out in the garage area, get Alex and Jeff's thoughts, and Jason, you and I will share more of our thoughts about that as we continue on with practice here as trucks continue to work their way around the speedway. 22 of the 30 trucks have been out on the speedway at this point. From Kansas Speedway, this is the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR.
Hey guys, it's Dylan Welch. He's Tyler Burnett. We're the co-hosts of the Rip the Fence podcast. If you like traditional non-wing dirt track racing, we've got the podcast for you.
Shane Meal trying to drive away.
I can't do everything, but I could do anything and everything I wanted before I got injured. So
just like many of the great podcasts going, we invite racers in to talk, and they tell us their life story.
And it's how I feel that matters.
It's the Rip the Fence podcast, available on MRN.com and your favorite podcast app.
Looking towards the weekend? Aren't Thursdays a drag? Ours too. Get your weekly dose of nitro-fueled NHRA talk every Thursday on The Straight Line, presented by O'Reilly Auto Parts. This is Ralph Shaheen. Join Doug Herbert and myself as we talk with the biggest names, both past and present, to ever stomp down on the loud pedal. Top Fuel, Funny Car, Pro Stock, motorcycles, you name it, we talk about it. Don't miss The Straight Line, Thursdays on MRN.com, iTunes, or wherever your favorite podcasts are heard.
This is NASCAR Gander Outdoors Truck Series practice.
It's been a tough afternoon, in and around 7 cautions, but the checkers are in the air. Johnny Sauter picks up his career win number 2 in the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series.
We are here at Kansas Speedway, and so glad you've joined us here on a Friday morning as trucks continue to circulate around the Speedway. Watching about 4 trucks now work their way down into turn number 1 as Grant Enfinger is there. It looks like Stewart Friesen is in the middle of that one as well. Brett Moffitt is there racing right behind Grant Enfinger as they work onto the backstretch. And Jason, one of the things we've talked about with this racetrack is it widening out, and you pointed out during that commercial break, it looks like we're already widened out this racetrack.
It hasn't taken that long at all. We've seen Grant Enfinger, who runs the middle lane right now. We saw Sheldon Creek go all the way to the outside wall along with Harrison Burton. So, you know, unlike a Dover track we were at last week where you need to wait for the rubber to build up a little bit and kind of spread some things out, spread the groove out, this track affords you to be able to jump out there immediately. And we're seeing drivers make some moves on that outside already down the backstretch. We're looking at Brandon Jones right now. He worked the middle lane, working his way around Tyler Dipple. And he obviously has a lot of laps on this track in the NASCAR Xfinity Series in the past and the Truck Series as well. So this is a fun track. This is a fun, fast track. It's, you know, you always hear 1.5 miles. People may say cookie cutter or whatever. This one is not a typical one. This one, it affords you to have multiple lanes to be able to run. You carry a lot of speed in turns 1 and 2. And like we heard from Jeff Hensley, the crew chief for Grant Enfinger a little while ago, getting off of turn 2 is really important here. And we see that's what makes it fun here.
It really is. It's a challenging racetrack for sure, and lots of options for the driver. Watching Brett Moffitt roll his way around the Speedway, he's working to get up to speed this year. Right now, 4th in the points earned title this year as he rolls down across the stripe here, working around a slower truck as he works around Timmy Hill's or Austin Hill's truck down into turn number 1. So yeah, they're widening the racetrack out, and it is going to be in great shape for tonight's race. That is for sure.
Yeah, one of the drivers you just talked about, that's Austin Hill, driving for Shiggy Hattori Racing in that 16 truck. Of course, it's the championship team, not the champion driver. Austin Hill jumps into this ride, Alex Hayden at Daytona, and does it right. He comes away with the victory. But since then, it kind of seemed like they've had some gremlins throughout the this first part of this season, but they've had good runs. The back ends haven't been able to show it for it.
It's an interesting scenario down here, guys. With Austin Hill, he's got some experience. He's won some K&N Pro Series East races. He's had success, obviously, the season opener of this year at Daytona. And with this race team being the championship team that they are, you got Peter Gilliland. If you want to talk experience, there's far worse you can do than Peter Gilliland. He was part of the 1992 Winston Cup Series championship team of NASCAR Hall of Famer Alan Kowicki. Peter Gilliland, he's down here. He's working on this Shiggy Hattori truck. He's got champion from last year. Then you've got Scott Zipadelli down here as the crew chief. This is a team, to your point, and the question of the day of who could contend and be a foe, if you will, to Johnny Sauter here this year for the championship. I'm a believer it's Austin Hill, because Austin, with this race team around him, he's like a sponge. He soaks up the knowledge that he has and applies it to what he's already learned as a race car driver from being a kid all the way to where he's at right now. And after his big win at Daytona, as a family man, first thing he did is he got up the next morning, took his family to Disney World down the street. He has his priorities in line, but he understands he is in an opportunity of a lifetime right now as far as professional career goes. Austin Hill is learning more and more. And you mentioned kind of the bugaboos, if you will, the little gremlins plaguing this team. They've been running top 3, top 5 most all year long, and then have an electrical issue here, an electrical issue there, or some sort of a mechanical issue. Once they get those bugs worked out and squared away, Austin Hill, Scott Zipadelli, this entire Hattori Racing team, to me, are going to be contenders yet again.
I believe that's the case also. The good news is with the playoff format that we have, getting that win at Daytona, they virtually locked themselves in. So this team will be good when we get into September, October, November. Austin Hill, a 25-year-old racer from Winston, Georgia. And we talked about that. He won at Daytona, followed that up with a 7th place run at Atlanta, and he felt like there he was just in the wrong lane on a late restart. And so he had a problem with that. Then he ran into those mechanical gremlins. He said, I think he told me that overheating was the problem at 2 different racetracks. So we had that problem, but he did come back with a 7th place run last week at Dover. So kind of got the ship righted around a little bit last week at Dover.
Yeah, you know, and it's small victories that you got to look at. You know, we go back to Phoenix back earlier this year when we're out there with the Cup Series and we're doing a practice session. We're talking about Jimmy Johnson and how things hadn't gone well for the 7-time champ, and it was small steps to be able to do it. They came away with a top 10 there. Last week, the top 10 for Austin Hill, that was pretty good because it gets them back, get their footing back, and gets them rolling into a series of tracks that they'll run really well at. Here, Scott Zipadelli has a great notebook for this racetrack, and next week is Charlotte as well. I think it's just a matter of time before you see Austin Hill back in victory lane. I
think this is one of those teams that they need to race regularly, and then we're in this schedule now where we're racing far more frequently for Austin Hill, and he will be one to watch as we roll forward and continue on with our conversation, with our thoughts. And our question that we have for you on our social media is, Johnny Sauter's kind of established himself with the win last week into the playoffs, and the likely contender to be battling for the championship. Who do you like? Who are some of your other drivers? Austin Hill would certainly be one. Jeff Striegel is also in the garage area, and Jeff, you follow this Gander Outdoors Truck Series. What's your thoughts on who may step up and be battling Johnny and other drivers here as we work toward the second half of this season?
As Johnny goes by and back into his garage, Steve Post. You know, when I think about this, and I like what Alex said, you know, I like the young talent in Austin Hill, but I think when we look at who is going to contend with a veteran, don't you think that we have to look at other veterans in the sport, people who can consistently win on a week in and week out basis? And I'm talking about people, I guess most notably, like his teammate in Matt Crafton, a guy who just pulls in right now. That was the engine you just heard shut down. A guy that is capable of going out and winning week in and week out. Now, whether he does that or not, that remains to be seen. But he's got a proven track record. He's a proven champion. He's somebody who's been there, who's done that. Then when you look at other drivers that, okay, they haven't done what Matt Crafton has done, you look at a guy like Harrison Burton and all the resources that they have behind him with KBM, Kyle Busch Motorsports. So, you know, I think that my answer to this, Jason and Steve, is it's too soon. I don't know. There's so many capable people down here. You got to look at, you know, Brett Moffitt. I love the rivalry that's brewing right now between Moffitt and Johnny Sauter. That's going to continue throughout the year. So I'm going to leave it at this, Steve, and I hope you're okay with it. I don't know, but I can't wait to see it unfold.
I'm with you on that. That is for sure. I am with you. We've asked the question on our Twitter account. Ryan Goodrum chimes in and says, I know he hasn't won a race since Eldora of 2017, but he's kind of what Jeff Striegel is. But I'm picking Matt Crafton not only to win this weekend, but to be one to watch as we roll forward. So that veteran driver behind the wheel has certainly got some love from a lot of folks here in the garage and in NASCAR Nation. So trucks continue to work around the racetrack here as we continue on with this practice session. Now just watching Spencer Boyd lock off some laps there as he is one of the trucks to most recently hit the racetrack.
Yeah, Spencer Boyd currently 19th on the rundown. Your top 5 here in practice number 1 for the Gander Outdoors Truck Series. Stewart Friesen setting fast time so far. Sheldon Creek in 2nd, Matt Crafton in 3rd, Grant Enfinger in 4th, Austin Hill in 5th. From Kansas Speedway, this is Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR.
Hey guys, Corley Joy. Join me and my friends Lauren Fox and Daryl Mott on the Sunday Money Podcast as we talk racing.
What happened in California? Like what? Because
yeah, they all sat at the end of pit road waiting for one guy to be the sacrificial lamb, and nobody wanted to do it. And just life.
Did you fall in love on TV?
No, definitely not. I could not.
Plus, you never know who might stop by.
Young Ryan Blaney's here with something he's saying.
I brought you our script because you guys are like our show. So
it's Sunday Money on MRN.com, iTunes, Spotify, or wherever else you listen to podcasts.
When the racing concludes each weekend, keep up with the non-stop NASCAR news each weekday on NASCAR Today Midday.
The drafting type races I've always excelled in, so that's where I see a tremendous advantage.
I think it was very important for us to get Martin and to get Cole, both of those as a group, because they're very good at what they do.
NASCAR Today Midday, Monday through Friday on the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR.
This is NASCAR Gander Outdoors Truck Series practice.
He only led one lap, but it was the most important lap and just enough fuel for Matt Crafton across the line. And Matt Crafton has stole the win here tonight at the Kansas Speedway. He is the winner of the Toyota Tundra 250.
That was one of 2 victories here for Matt Crafton at the Kansas Speedway. First one coming back in 2013 and 2015 on win number 2. And Crafton last week, by the way, Jason Toy, Steve Post back here with you, topside at the Kansas Speedway. It's practice session number 1 for the Gander Outdoors Truck Series. We got Jeff Striegel and Alex Hayton patrolling the garage area as well. And when you looked at Matt Crafton there, Steve, this is the track you come back to. Last week, he had to start at the back of the pack at Dover because of an engine change. He came his way towards the front. Crafton ended up finishing up in that 5th spot. Matter of fact, coming in off back-to-back 5th-place finishes. The team's starting to get a little bit more week in and week out.
I think that's the point. I think that, while to me Jeff's response was a bit of a cop-out, okay, as far as not picking anybody, but I do think his point is valid in that we're still very early in the season, and when you take a veteran like Matt Crafton and Junior Joyner and that crew, let's give them some time to get up and running and see where they're at. Another young driver that is off to a great start is Sheldon Creek. Sheldon has completed 17 laps here today. He's second on the speed charts, and I know Alex Hayton is down in his garage area.
Yeah, and he says the truck's pretty good, although Sheldon's one of those drivers that's new to the truck series, so he's not exactly sure what a really good truck should feel like here at Kansas Speedway. That doesn't mean he doesn't have laps around this place. Sheldon, the reigning ARCA Menard Series champion, understands how to drive race vehicles, whether it's a car or a truck here in the Gander Outdoors Truck Series. He's one of those quick studies. Led a lot of laps, won a stage last week at Dover before sliding out of control and having the monster reach out and bite him. But he told me a while ago before he climbed aboard the truck to start the practice that was a learning experience at Dover last week. He understands now a little more about what to do and what not to do. This again being his first start in a truck here at Kansas Speedway. You know, I think Sheldon Creed is one of the talented drivers that I think has that attitude. And I'm not saying it's a lackadaisical attitude. It's the attitude, I guess the best way to explain it is he doesn't care. He's going to come out and he's going to do whatever he wants to do. He doesn't care if Johnny Sauter and Matt Crafton are the veterans. He doesn't care. He's a champion in the ARCA Series. He's an X Games gold medal winner, for crying out loud. This young man knows how to win things, and he has that attitude and that never say die. And he's also got a very veteran team around him here at GMS Racing, led by crew chief Doug Randolph. Doug's been in all these NASCAR garages for decades. He understands how to make vehicles turn in the middle of corners, let alone go fast down the straightaway. So I think Sheldon Creed is a guy that's having a pretty good practice, obviously second on the board right now, but I think he's a talented young race car driver that just has that, I don't care about the experience level. I know how to win, and I'm going to go win.
21-year-old racer from Alpine, California, and do I dare say it's kind of that Southern California vibe, the I don't care as far as the outward appearance goes, but a real dedication, a real passion to his sport. Alex mentioned a gold medal winner in the X Games. That was in Austin in 2015. Looking at his history from BMX bikes to motocross into off-road racing, the X Games. Then he got into late models and ARCA, and here he is in the Truck Series. And he's 21 years old. Man, this kid has a lot of seat time and a lot of experience, and he's working his way around the oval here now, just getting a few more laps in. He's second fastest. He's just completed 2 laps now, racing down to the stripe, completing his 3rd lap, working around one of the slower automobiles as he races down in the turn number 1 and 2. Around a couple of other trucks, about 3 of them are working their way through turns 1 and 2. Now Sheldon Creed, the second truck in line of those, and just trying to learn what he needs to learn here today as he rolls now into turn number 3. But this is part of the youth movement that just makes me feel that we are in really good hands with young racers, talented racers, racers from different disciplines like Sheldon Creed coming into the Gander Outdoors Truck Series, and I feel really good about the future of the sport when we have youngsters like Sheldon involved in the sport coming up into the ranks.
And given that opportunity to evolve in this sport and be able to use this series and have that opportunity to do that. You know, Sheldon is one of, 9 drivers in this race tonight that has never raced a truck here at this track. And Alex talked about the fact he does have experience, though, in running the ARCA Series here and running successfully here in the ARCA Series. So, but it's a little different beast because these trucks punch such a big hole in the air. It's a little bit of a different challenge for him, and that's why you're seeing a lot of these rookies so far early in this race, early in this practice session, getting as many laps as they can, and a lot of it in group type of practice. You know, we've seen a couple of drivers go out and try to simulate a qualifying attempt out here, because we'll qualify later on this afternoon here for the Gander Outdoors Truck Series. But a lot of the young drivers, especially the ones that are working their way down the backstretch right now, Ross Chastain, one of the veterans out there with them in the middle of it all, just trying to get acclimated and to feel what these trucks are going to do in the corners here, especially when you get into a tight pack like they are running right now around the speedway.
Yes, working their way down across the stripe, and there's just getting a feel for what the aerodynamics of these trucks, how big of a hole they punch into the air as they continue on. Brendan Jones is there in that 51 truck as he rolls the Toyota off from turn number 2. You've got Hill in the second truck there. There's Sheldon Creek working alongside of Ross Chastain as well. So now it's a group of about 5 trucks, and again, this is where this track is widening out here in turns 3 and 4 as they roll around the speedway. Plenty of racing room. In fact, there's even 2 truck widths distance between the inside car and the outside car. So a lot of racing room here at the Kansas Speedway. This track is already widening out, and continue with this practice session here as we are 34 minutes into this practice session. So really, we've only got about 15 minutes left here of this session. As we look at the scoring, we look at Stewart Friesen atop the speed charts. He's completed 16 laps, 177.585 miles per hour, and Jeff Striegel is down in the vicinity of Stewart Friesen's garage.
Indeed I am, and Steve, by the way, I am not a cop-out, okay? I just want to set the record straight. Yeah, Stewart, we're getting ready to do an update on the 52 truck of Stewart Friesen, and then he just happened to pull in and said, you know what, I'd be happy to talk to you guys. Right now, you're sitting P1 on top of the scoring pylon. That's where you want to be, albeit practice, but you got out and said it's not perfect. What more do you need?
Just a little bit of drivability and dirty air. We got out there in a little bit of a group, but with some pretty fast trucks with Moffitt and I forget who he was following, but it was decent. It was just a little edgy and dirty air, and you'll have that. The track's still pretty green, so we'll see what happens today with other cars getting on the track and see how the track grips up. But our Halmar 52 Silverado is fast. It's good speed by itself, so that's cool. Thanks to Chevrolet and everybody that supports us. It's pretty cool. We got a good mile-and-a-half program, and this is my favorite truck, so we'll see how it goes.
Did you just avoid disaster a minute ago, either by you being that good or by pure luck? When you pulled in, the hood went up, the crew working on the right front tires found a small, very small puncture in that Goodyear tire, and I guess I got to ask you, was that by luck that we found it, or did you feel that on the racetrack?
No, we got out by ourselves there, kind of by accident. Missed getting in the draft behind the 18, so just was trying to move around the racetrack and got up on the fence and ripped a couple laps, and it felt good, and I just got a little loose. Out of 2 the last time we were planning on coming in anyways, so probably got up there and there was probably just a piece of something I ran over. So no, definitely better to be lucky than good, and we caught something there. So we'll stop practice now and go to work on it, and get another set of tires for the second set.
Good luck tonight.
All right, thank you.
Stewart Friesen getting ready to go, and I got to tell you, obviously they knew by just checking the tire pressure that they had a tire going down. And so they had about 3 guys that were poring over that tire, just looking at it, spraying it, trying to see if they could get the thing to bubble up. It took them 3, 4, maybe even 5 minutes, and then finally they found the bubble, literally the size of a pinhole, but they were able to find it. And Steve and Jason, you know as well as I do, had they not found it, go back out for another set and have that tire go down after it was punctured, could have been disaster for what he said, my best truck. Looking for win number 1 in his career, driving that Silverado, is Stewart Friesen.
Second 5 times in his career, and most of those coming on mile-and-a-half tracks. He's evolved into a great race car driver on the pavement. Steve, when we go back and look at Stewart, old Stewie there, we love talking about Stewart. The fact is that you go a couple of years ago when he was coming into the series, they had to actually take a break because they were tearing up too much stuff too fast, and they had to get regrouped and come back. And he's gotten better and stronger. The merger or the partnership with them and GMS Racing has been a huge deal for them as well. And the great thing about running last week in Dover, we're on the East Coast, he was running big block modified somewhere up and down the coast, so I'm sure it's a little bit different. He didn't bring it out here to the Midwest with him, but he's a guy that will, and he's not in the truck, he's driving something somewhere.
Stu the Shoe, as he's known up in the Northeast. And yeah, I don't know the schedule, but I'm fairly confident that with a Friday night truck series race, he'll be headed east and probably at a dirt track in New York State or somewhere thereabouts on Saturday night, as he just is a hardcore in-your-face racer. Stewart Friesen is the fastest driver here so far, 177.585 miles per hour. Sheldon Creek second. Matt Crafton, Grant Enfinger, and Austin Hill, your top 5 from Kansas Speedway. This is the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR.
Clutch Coffee Bar in Mooresville, North Carolina is redefining the drive-through coffee game in Race City, USA. The Clutch experience is fast, friendly, and delicious. Quality drinks and unmatched customer service is the name of the game. Clutch Coffee Bar offers signature lattes and mochas, custom flavor-infused energy drinks, smoothies, and more. Over 25 flavors, there's something for everyone. Visit our 2 locations in Mooresville, 356 Williamson Road and 154 West Plaza Drive. Open daily from 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. Power up today with Clutch Coffee Bar.
When you're on the go, missing the side-by-side action at the racetrack isn't a problem.
Here comes Logano on the high side. He drives it deep into turn number 2.
Motor Racing Network brings the NASCAR race to you, wherever you are, so you don't miss one lap of the excitement.
Denny Hamlin has won the 61st edition of the Daytona 500.
You are the man, D8. The power of radio to the imagination of the listener. Tune in to the Motor Racing Network. Visit MRN.com for an affiliate list in your local area.
From Kansas Speedway in Kansas City, this is NASCAR Gander Outdoors Truck Series practice.
We are here at Kansas Speedway. Trucks continuing to make their way around the racetrack. About 10 minutes remain here in this practice session. Austin Wayne Self, one of the drivers that is on the racetrack, logging some laps here, getting it stretched out. He's completed 16 laps. He's 16th fastest. Now there's lap number 17 in the book. So Austin Wayne Self, one of the great young drivers that we have here in the sport, and good to have him back in the sport. Ran afoul of NASCAR's substance abuse policy, has gone through the road to recovery, and was able to join us back at Dover. And we are so glad that he has taken the steps and said he's going to behave going forward. And it's good to see him back on the racetrack and rolling along.
He had a great run going last week, got messed up in somebody else's issue out there, but it was, like you said, it's good to have him back and to continue to develop. And a lot of young drivers developing, and we're seeing a lot of those drivers working their way through some teams that continue to establish themselves. DGR Crosley Racing is one of them. Of course, Natalie Decker, who's out there on track right now, she drives that 54 truck. Tyler Akram, who drives that 17 truck, had a great run last week. Matter of fact, he hadn't ran all the races so far to start off the season, but back-to-back top 10 finishes in that truck as well. And Alex, this is a kid that is impressive. I mean, he's kind of, I don't want to say he's stoic in the aspect, but he is focused, he's laser focused, and he puts a big old smile on his face when he gets out of that race truck, but when he's in it, he's definitely out there going for the win.
Well, yeah, he is, and he's the reigning NASCAR K&N Pro Series East champion. He knows how to win. You mentioned the back-to-back top 10 finishes here in the Gander Truck Series, so he's learning, and he's learning how to deal with the bigger horsepower, the bigger, heavier race vehicle that is the Gander Truck Series, and how to maneuver, because he's now racing against guys like Johnny Sauter, like Matt Crafton, like Grant Enfinger, and Brett Moffitt, who are seasoned, long-time racers, and he's learning how they work. With DGR Crosley, you mentioned that race team. There's a lot of different directions you can go with this story, but Tyler Ankrum, being as young as he is, a reigning K&N Pro Series East champion, has the opportunity to learn from a couple of the best down here in his crew chief, Bono Mannion. Kevin Bono Mannion is his crew chief, and then he's got a guy named Chad Walter as his engineer. Chad, as a matter of fact, is up against the toolbox right now. He's got his face buried in the computer like he normally does. Chad was the lead engineer at Team Penske for a few years, and then went over and became the crew chief for Justin Allgaier in the Xfinity Series for a little while. Now he's here. He was hired on to come and make this DGR Crosley team better. Chad is he's a big guy, played football, and while he was playing football in college, he was getting his engineering degree from Cornell University. Yeah, he's one of those Ivy Leaguers. So when you have an Ivy League engineer, you have a pure racer in Kevin Bono Mannion, who's your crew chief, and you got a hot shoe like a Tyler Ankrum is your driver, success is going to come, and it's going to come rather quickly, and it's starting to show right now. He's got a decent truck here in this first practice, finds himself inside the top 10, I believe 8th the last time I looked at the timing and scoring is where he's at. Simply trying to keep the nose of the truck off the splitter, the meaning he's dragging it just a bit when he goes down into turn number 1, and that scrubs speed and scrubs and breaks traction with the front tires. So Tyler Ankrum, Bono Mannion, Chad Walter, this entire group down here, they're just trying to work on how to get the ride height exactly where it needs to be, where the splitter is right on top of the racetrack, but not touching it. It's a fine balance down here. But overall, Tyler Ankrum, he's learning, and he's learning quickly, and he's learning from the best.
He is making laps out on the speedway right now, is Ankrum, 22 laps, and he continues now racing up off from turn number 2. I'm not shocked that Alex Hayden's down there around Tyler Ankrum. Tyler actually had a decision to make back at a younger point. His father was an avid amateur golfer and actually golfed alongside of Tiger Woods, and so Tyler at one time thought about golfing. Now Alex is our resident expert on all things golfing and all things Tiger Woods, so not a shocker that he's down there hanging around the Ankrum pit, but Tyler Ankrum is out on the speedway now making laps, and youngster from San Bernardino, California, not really a shocker there that he is tied up with David Gilliland and the DGR, David Gilliland Racing Crosley combination, because, well, the Gillilands, they're royalty out in San Bernardino, California. So good to see this young racer, 18 years old, getting some track time and a great opportunity here at Kansas today.
And it's one of the great teams to have in this truck series and continue to evolve. You see a lot of teams that come in, truck series will evolve up into the Xfinity series, eventually into the Cup series on some teams. But to have DGR Crosley Racing here, this is a team that runs a couple of trucks. They've at times ran 3 trucks in the past in some races, but they also run in the ARCA series, picked up the win at Talladega with Todd Gilliland driving the car there. They also run in the K&N East series, occasionally running out in the West series as well. So they're multiverse in the aspect that they're kind of trying to put work and develop young drivers throughout the in all phases here of the NASCAR world, which is great to see.
Yes, it really is. So some great team owners here. Another great team owner, and we've talked a lot about Kyle Busch and Kyle Busch Motorsports. The young talent that has come through that joint is an impressive list, a who's who in young talent in the business. And the young racer right now that is one of Kyle's drivers is Todd Gilliland. He drives the number 4 truck right now, 7th on the speed charts. He's completed 18 laps. And Jeff Striegel, what's happening down there with Todd Gilliland?
Well, they're making a lot of changes, I can tell you that. Let me step out of the garage here. Making a lot of changes on that truck. A moment ago, Alex was talking about Tyler and said success is going to come. All right, if we believe that to be true for every young, talented race car driver, you just got to stay at it, right? You got to keep the head down, and you just got to keep digging, because especially if you're driving for KBM and Kyle Busch, then you might be like a Christopher Bell and Eric Jones, a William Byron, a Bubba Wallace, a Noah Gragson. The list goes on and on of winners that have been behind the wheel of one of Kyle's trucks. Now you look at Todd Gilliland, just a young 18-year-old kid, but now with 31 starts driving for Kyle. The one thing that's missing on that resume, a victory. And it started, you got to believe that it's starting to weigh on him. It wasn't but a couple of weeks ago, and Kyle Busch kind of made a bit of a off-color comment about the fact that, you know, this is a kid that has been given all the resources, and now it's up to him to figure out how to get that truck to victory lane. All right, we're not talking about a Crafton or a Sauter, a veteran. We're talking about a young 18-year-old driver who I believe recognizes that if you're going to make it in this sport, it's going to come with victories, and he has to find one. Maybe it will come this week, and when we talk about, or this weekend, and when we talk about resources, Alex Hayden, the one thing that you can count on when you come to work for Kyle Busch Motorsports is you're going to get people that have been around this sport for a long, long time, even one individual that's been here since day one.
Speaking, of course, of Showy, is what they call him. His name's Chris Showalter. Down here, you've been to every single Truck Series race since its inception. Exactly how many truck races now?
I'm thinking we're somewhere like 584, 85, something like that.
You've seen just about every kind of change imaginable to this series out there. We were talking about your driver, Todd Gilliland, and a lot of the youth that's come in versus some of the experience down here. How challenging is it with young drivers to get their confidence where it needs to be?
It's not. Kids these days, they're so eager. They want the challenge. So it's basically trying to get them to fit what we need them to be, because you gotta harness their energy back because they're go, 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 go. It's like, whoa, you don't need to be that hard all the time. That's the biggest issue, is getting them to, we don't need 110, we need 85, 90.
Well, and that's the experience that you bring to this team. Do other crew members and drivers alike, do they rely on you given the fact that you've been here for every single race?
Yeah, a little bit.
That just means you're getting old, Chris. That's it.
I am getting old. I'll be 47 next week.
Yeah, that's Chris Showalter. Let him get back to work. His dad, Gary Showalter, was a longtime crew chief in this garage as well. But this is a guy that has seen literally everything take place in this Gander Truck Series since day one.
Every Truck Series race, absolutely amazing. I actually worked on a team back before at MRN doing PR, and Chris was on the team and actually spent a short period of time as our crew chief, and he is just a rock. When you hire a guy like Chris Showalter for your team, you've got a rock that you can build a team around. Yeah, he's not flashy, may not be your crew chief, he may be one of the guys in the trenches. He's like one of those good offensive linemen on a football team, one of those guys that protects everybody. Chris Showalter, really a neat guy. Good to hear from him.
Yeah, it's great to hear from him. Like I said, been in the garage for every one of them. Part of our 25 years of Truck Series racing. You can check it out, mrn.com. Download the podcast. And he's a great guy that can tell you a lot of history about this series. And a great guy. Maybe those are Hall of Fame numbers when you think about it. No Every single race for the Truck Series. We got more as we get ready to wrap up practice number 1 of the Gander Outdoors Truck Series here from Kansas Speedway. This is Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR.
2019 is the Motor Racing Network's 50th year, and things are about to get a lot louder. I'm Woody Kane. The NASCAR season is revving its engine, and MRN's 2 biggest loudspeakers are back when race spotter Joey Meyer and I bring you the latest news, results, and headlines every Monday on MRN Out Loud. Crank it up Mondays on MRN.com, iTunes, or wherever podcasts are heard.
Check out MRN.com for a new podcast series called The Tough Trucks of NASCAR. 25 years and still trucking. We'll take you back to some great races.
Benson to the bottom of the racetrack. This is the race for the lead and the win at Michigan.
And some wild moments.
One truck is in the air. Matt Crafton upside down.
And we'll let you hear the stories behind them.
He was too bullheaded to let me pass him, and I was too bullheaded to let him have it.
Download the show for free on iTunes and at MRN.com. From Kansas Speedway in Kansas City, this is NASCAR Gander Outdoors Truck Series practice.
Well, the black and red flags are waving here at the start-finish line directly below us, signifying the end of practice session number 1 for the Gander Outdoors Truck Series as we get ready to run the Digital Ally 250 coming up later on this evening here on the Motor Racing Network. Jason Toy, Steve Post here with you. Big thanks to Alex Hayden and Jeff Striegel down in the garage area. And Steve, we had a beautiful morning. Great way to start things off, and Stewart Friesen setting fast time.
When we look at the scoring pile out, I think the top drivers have made it to the top. The one thing I really enjoyed was seeing the multiple grooves this early in the day. It bodes well for tonight's Gander Outdoors Truck Series race and for the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series race that'll come up a little bit later on. Let's take a look. 23 drivers took some time at the racetrack. Stewart Friesen was the fastest. Brett Moffitt was second. Matt Crafton was third fastest. Sheldon Creek was fourth. Harrison Burton fifth. Sixth was Grant Enfinger. Seventh was Austin Hill. Todd Gilliland was eighth. Tyler Ankrum was ninth. And Johnny Sauter was the 10th fastest driver.
Riley Hurst, the rookie, finishes up 11th in practice session number 1. Then it was Ben Rhodes in 12th. 13th, Gus Dean. Ross Chastain, 14th. Brandon Jones, 15th. Austin Wayne Self will get clocked in at 16th quick in the first practice session. Natalie Decker, 17th. Angela Rook at 18th. 19th, Tyler Dipple. Spencer Boyd rounds out the top 20.
Josh Rayum was 21st. Joey Gase was 22nd, and Josh Balicki completed 3 laps, and he was 23rd fastest. 30 trucks are here, so there's 7 trucks that did not make it out on the racetrack. We did hear Jordan Anderson talk about some bugaboos under the hood of his truck that he was working on, and a few other trucks will work. But the good news is they've got another practice coming up, and I'm sure we'll see those trucks out on the track here in just a little bit.
Well, we'd like to thank you for joining us today on NASCAR.com and MRN.com for today's coverage of the NASCAR Gander Outdoors Truck Series practice from Kansas Speedway. Quick programming reminder, it don't forget, we'll be back with you in 1 hour. Take an hour break. We'll come back. Steve and I will jump down on the pit lane. Alex and Jeff will come up here on topside to bring you practice session number 1. So live streaming coverage will resume at 11:30 a.m. Eastern with the final practice session for the Truck Series, followed immediately by the first practice session for the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series at 12:30 Eastern. For Steve Post and Alex Hayden and Jeff Striegel, I'm Jason Toy. We'll see you in an hour here from the Kansas Speedway.
Motor Racing Network's coverage of NASCAR practice has come to you from Kansas Speedway. Today's broadcast was brought to you under an exclusive radio license granted by Kansas Speedway to the Motor Racing Network, solely for the private non-commercial use of our listening audience. Any use of the description and accounts of this event without the express written consent of the Motor Racing Network is prohibited. Follow all the NASCAR action at MRN.com. This broadcast has been a production of the Motor Racing Network.